Okay, so recording is up. Amazing. Hi everyone. I'm so happy to have you for our last session for today for the Community Lead in Africa Summit. Super excited to be hosting it today. Please everyone to be able to drop your name on the chat session and where you are joining in from. I think most of us are joining in from various countries across Africa. So I think you could just drop our name on the chat and just indicate where we're joining from. Okay, great. That's nice. Okay, got someone from Kenya joining in. That's great. All right, that's great. So we can keep doing this on the chat session while we kick off the main session. Oh, Kenya, someone from Kenya again. That's great. So we have like two Nigeria and two Kenya joining in. Okay, that's great. Okay, so while we keep on dropping where we're joining from, let me just go straight to introducing our speaker and the session we're having today. So once again, welcome to the last session for the Community Lead in Africa Summit. We are really stoked to have you join us. For now, for this session, we're having a conversation around community building as a business strategy, benefits, and return of investment. So basically, if you're a startup founder here or you're a business owner here who is looking to, incorporate community building and try to make your organization or your company community led, it's like a perfect session for you. And if you have any question, you could just, keep it down and just maybe at the end of the talk, you could shoot in question. We stoked to have Eric Martin, who is the head of community led at Comso. I've been following him for quite a while. His work for quite a while. I'm like super stoked. And when it was I had at Comso, I was like, okay, perfect. This is like a nice move for the team. So yeah, I think you really benefit from his wealth of experience when it comes to community building and community led approach. So without further ado, hi Eric.
Hey, really excited to join everyone today. Yeah, was excited when I got asked to join, and it's Friday afternoon here for me in North Carolina on the East Coast, and yeah, exciting way to end the week here talking with y'all. So I'll keep this super informal. Have lots of time at the end uh, for some questions and back and forth, and also try to make it some. I've been super fortunate to work in the community space at a lot of different companies and types of companies. And so there's a few things I've found that are true kind of across the board. The answer to most things in the community industry, as I'm sure you may know, is it depends. But there's a few things, at least for me, that I found can be true across the board. So I know you all are in different businesses, different sizes, different industries. So I'll try to keep this to things I found and approaches I found that work. In most cases, at least. So a little bit about myself. So yeah, I actually started working in the community space from the film world. So growing up, I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker. I wanted to make movies and videos. For a while after college, I was a sort of one-person videographer for a website called Hoops TV. It was probably about 20 years ahead of its time. It didn't last. It's not around anymore. But this was like early 2000s, and it was me with a video camera at like sort of much smaller or pretty small basketball games, recording the games, interviewing people, editing it, and then uploading it on a really slow modem. Also my first experience with startups, and great startup, really smart people, but just not the right time. So that was an important lesson there too. But from then I got into marketing films, so independent films, films from outside the U.S., documentaries, things without a big budget. So I had to get really creative in terms of how to market it. So a lot of times that would be, if you're selling a documentary about the military or a mystery thriller from Korea, you can't market those the same way you market a big blockbuster movie. So you would find people that like similar movies. And a lot of times that would be in small sort of fan communities, message boards, things like that. So I kind of got into the online community space that way, some early social media. And then I was fortunate enough to become the first community manager at Reddit. So I joined Reddit in 2008. I was the employee number 5 there, so super early, and worked at Reddit for 6 years as it grew and grew and grew. Got to work with a lot of awesome people and communities there, and didn't get a lot of sleep, but it was a super fun experience, and I learned a lot from the community and users there. Also worked at a company called Depop. Depop sold to Etsy a couple years ago for, I don't know, over $1 billion. It's sort of like a eBay or Etsy, but for mobile fashion stuff. I don't know, maybe some of y'all are familiar with it, but it was really cool. I got to launch that in the US. Also worked at WeWork, and then worked at Nike for a little bit. And also worked at a company called Teal, where we help people with job search. So that's something I'm passionate about, is just kind of helping people with navigating careers, job search, especially in this world where it's more and more possible to work remotely. So, I bring up my sort of resume just to share that, yeah, like I've been really fortunate to be part of some things that were successful. I've been a part of more things that were not successful and aren't around anymore, or didn't do what they were people hoped they would do. And so I know that creating a business, starting a business, building a business, it's hard. Even in the best times, the best market, best conditions, it's still really hard. Most small businesses, most startups, they fail. So even when you have great circumstances, that can be really difficult. When you're in an emerging field, as maybe some of you are, industries, like the community space or Web3 or new types of products or businesses that, aren't like a mature established market yet, that makes it even harder, because you're sort of trying to execute your business, but you're also sort of betting on this larger trend that'll hopefully benefit you as well. So that makes it extra hard. When there's a shaky economy or worse in a lot of places right now, that also makes it even harder. And yeah, when you're also doing so from a market that's underestimated, maybe underrespected, like some of you are, that makes it even harder. So, building a business is really hard, and I think you need to be successful. You need a lot of luck, but you also need sort of some sort of unfair advantage. And I believe that taking a community approach to building businesses is an unfair advantage that you can have as a process. It's not the only one, but it's the one that it's one that I believe in. And the way I think that works is, I think community building is an unfair advantage, not necessarily in maybe the super direct way that may also be true, but that I see people often talk about, but in almost an indirect way with the process itself. So when you're building a company or bringing a new product or trying to sell a service, you're sort of making bets, right? You're making big bets, small bets, throughout the days, throughout the weeks. You're betting, hey, if I reach out to 100 potential customers, maybe 10 of them will sign up for my app or buy my service. I bet if we create a good event, that'll help generate mouth, and that those will turn into customers. So you're making all these bets, right? And not all of them are going to work out, but you need some of them to pay off. And I think if you take a community building process to all of those tactics, all of those bets you're making, it means that if you do it with the intention that throughout the process you're going to connect people, right? When you're reaching out to customers, you're not just trying to land them as a customer. You're not just trying to get a referral, or you're not just trying to get them to try your business, or whatever that specific program or tactic that you're working on, but you're also, in addition to that, trying to build community, then it still matters if your bets win or not, so to speak, but it means that even when they don't hit, even when your guess or your instinct or just the conditions weren't right, that you're still building your business, that you're still winning in a way, because the process has built a community. You've connected people through the process. And that just means that the investment you're making into doing all those activities can pay off even when you're wrong, or even when things don't quite go your way, even when things don't work out like you hoped. And that, I don't know, at least in my experience, that happens a lot. Things don't quite work out. They don't, stuff doesn't convert the way you want it to. But if you add that community building layer into everything you're doing as much as you can, then it means that the process can be worth the investment, even when the payout, even when the end result isn't what you hoped it was. And so, I'll take I'll share one of my favorite quotes in community building that kind of approaches this and comes at this in another way. So there's a great sort of old school community organizer. He's still around, still writing and talking, but wrote about sort of community organizing in an offline sort of political way, neighborhoods, organizations, things like that, called Peter Block. Wrote a book called Stewardship, another one called On Community. And he has this quote that says, to create a collective, you must turn the individual's problems into the community's shared possibilities. And so I'll say that again: to create a collective, you must turn the individual's problems into the community's shared possibilities. And so to me, that's just kind of a much more eloquent than the way I put it. But another way to say this, that if you approach community building as a process, if you approach it, if you use it as a way to implement strategy, that's different. It's not just a channel. It's not just a new social media thing, or not just certain type of events, but it's actually a different way of doing all these things that we all do in order to bring a product or service or business to market. And if you involve the people whose problems you're trying to solve, the customers, the community, if you involve them and kind of invite them in at every step you can, then instead of just sort of the problem you're facing, which is launching a business or getting new customers or cutting costs or whatever those things are, then instead of just your individual problem that you're trying to solve on that day or that week or that month, it's now this sort of community that you're building. It's their shared opportunity. It's their shared possibility. They're involved, right? Even if it's in a small way, they're now involved. It's more than just this thing you're trying to solve. And I think that's, I don't know, for me at least, that's made a fundamental difference. I know that if I am doing a new marketing campaign or a new initiative, an event, that if I put in a little extra time to make connections, a little bit of extra thought into how am I going to try to connect people along the way, I know that it's going to be a success, even if the event doesn't happen. Right? If I do it in the right way, even if the event, whatever, I don't know, it's in the event space, a water pipe breaks and it's flooded and we can't do the event. I know that it's going to be worth my investment of time and energy and even money in terms, because the way I've gone about organizing the event, inviting speakers, spreading the word, that process will have built community or built new connections that'll make the all that effort worthwhile in a very pure business sense. Regardless, anything that happens at that event is that's extra. And you need that. I don't want to make it sound like just the community building process is enough, because it's not. You also need those sort of more traditional business wins, new business, new customers, et cetera. But the community building kind of gives you an extra unfair advantage, because even when those things don't succeed, you still have this result. you still have these new connections that you've built, the people that you've added to your network. And so, just to be clear, that doesn't necessarily mean that, that's different than saying you should start a Discord server or a Slack community or a forum or, certain social media tactics. And those may be right for you. But those things really depend. It depends on, who your audience is, who your customers are, what type of business you're in. But the important thing is to think about at all the steps you can, how can I connect people with each other? How can I make sure I'm reaching out to new people to connect? How can I facilitate them interacting with each other? And I think that's relevant in just about every business there is. I'll give you a specific example that I'm working on right now. That especially speaks to that that Peter Block quote about how do you turn the individual's problem into the community's responsibility. So we have something new I'm working on, and it's a tool, and it's all about helping you sort of build your network, right? Helping you figure out, what do I need to do? Who do I need to connect with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis so that I'll be where I want to be in, let's say, 3 years, right? Whatever that is, to have a successful business, to get a job at Google, whatever that is. But what should I do, in terms of networking, on a regular basis, right? And so we're creating I was thinking through creating a landing page and wanted to have some sort of, exciting, fun, new way to just kind of collect email addresses and stuff for the wait list before we launch this thing. And so the traditional way would be, just have some information about it, some compelling copy, a demo video or something, and say, hey, here, sign up here. Give us your email address. We'll give you early access or a discount or something, and that can absolutely work. And then I was actually preparing for this talk, and I was sort of thinking about it, and I was reading that Peter Block quote, and I was like, yeah, this is not a very sort of community building way to approach this, even though the tool is about building community. So I thought, okay, instead of just a traditional landing page, what if we created a few questions that people would answer about themselves, and a few topics, a few questions that they would like to ask to their peers, to the other people signing up. And I won't get into too many details here, but we figured out a way that over time, as more and more people sign up for this thing, when you sign up, you get a response back of what you're, based on the information you put in. And we're using some off-the-shelf, no-code AI stuff on Zapier and whatnot, to send back, kind of fun, almost like a small blog article about what your path, what your networking activity over the next 3 years in the future could look like. And the more people that participate in this, again, this simple no-code tool, the more information gets put into that system, and hopefully the more interesting, fun, thought-provoking those sort of glimpses of the future are. We'll see. It might not be that compelling. The predictions might be, way too outlandish. But it's for me, it was a good, at least in strategy, a good way to make something that traditionally would be very sort of like one directional. I'm just kind of putting my information into an email list, which is all, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all great. But instead of making it something where it's now a community, a group of people that are connected, it's their sort of shared project. And there's also an option to actually connect with other people who are sort of at a similar point and have like an accountability buddy in terms of, someone who you can help keep each other accountable to your goals as far as networking. So just one real example, and if you follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, you'll hopefully see what I'm talking about in a couple weeks, and you can be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, or see how it Maybe it won't work. We'll see. But that's how I use that sort of thinking in my own work. Now, I want to also talk about how you measure this. Like, you might be saying, oh, that sounds nice, and yeah, let's connect people. But like, either when you're looking at your own business, or when you're trying to communicate to other stakeholders, how do we show the return on investment? How do we show the value of this type of, very sort of often manual, human connection building? How does that work actually pay off? How do we show the benefit of it? And I'll share a couple examples, I think, that were particularly creative, but also effective. But the first thing I would say is just, I think there's a lot that ROI, that measuring the return on activities on investment can be really difficult to measure, even in areas where there's a lot of analytics, a lot of tooling. So, something like return on ad spend with digital marketing, with performance ads on, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, all these big platforms. I've bought a lot of performance ads in the past, and sometimes you can show a direct correlation or direct impact between what you're spending. All the really big platforms now, the sort of the ways we're tracking data, and in some cases not able to track it, all that's getting really messy and complex. So all of the big companies, Meta, Facebook, they're all now recommending what's called mixed media modeling. And essentially that's the way they used to measure how effective ads were, like in the 60s, when there was, a couple television channels, which is, you spend ads in this market and you find another combination of markets that's very similar, and you don't spend ads there, and then you compare. It's more complicated, but it's basically like, it's basically what it is, which is not measuring it directly by any means. It can be effective, but it's, I bring that up to say, like, we in some ways we shouldn't be hard on ourselves in terms of community building and demand more sort of like very hard data on the activities we're doing than even areas like performance advertising, where there's way more data, way more tooling, way more sort of established practice, and really smart people at all these big companies working on it. So I'll share my favorite example of how a community builder measured the return on investment in their community, and it's from the early 2000s. So this is early internet. I don't know. I'm old enough to remember that time. Most of you probably are not. But it was at Shell Oil, right? So Shell Oil, they had what's called a community of practice for geologists. So all the geologists at Shell Oil would get together on sort of the message board, again, very early, very slow message board, and they would compare notes on, I don't know, things that geologists who are helping companies drill for oil do. And they found the person running this program was needed to report up to their stakeholders about what the return on that investment was. And they took a really simple but effective approach. They went to the geologists and they just interviewed them, talked to them and said, what benefit have you gotten from the community? And from a few, they heard that there was this new technique of determining whether a site they were drilling on was dry, whether it was worth continuing to drill, or they were able to determine that earlier than before they had this technique. So it's a new technique that essentially saved the company money because they could move on and not waste money drilling on a site where there wasn't oil faster. So they again talked with the geologists, talked with the actual sort of customers, the community members, and said, okay, each time we do that, how much money does the company save? Say, oh, okay, if the company spends 1 week less on basically sites that aren't gonna yield oil, that's $50,000, right? So okay, $50,000. They're very conservative with their numbers, and then they ask the geologist, so how much of this new technique being sort of popularized throughout the company, how much would you attribute to the community? And they ask a bunch of they ask 20 geologists individually, so they weren't comparing, and then they average that number, and it was like 70%. So okay. So they know the company has used this technique on 20 sites. So they've saved, 20 times $50,000, which is what they save for each one where they're able to move on earlier. And the experts said that the average they would assign is 70%. So they multiplied the dollar amount times the number of times, and then they took 70% of that. So again, being conservative. It's not all due to the community, but a big chunk of it is. And then they went to other stakeholders, other sort of experts who are outside this community, and said, well, how confident are you in this calculation we've made? How confident are you that we're correctly attributing this new technique and the financial benefits from it from this community of practice? And they said, oh, maybe, 60%. So then they took 60% of that number they had before. And that all together is a very simple, conservative way. They came up with a number that was, several times in savings to the company, was, several times the dollar size of the money that team had spent creating this message board, had spent on the overhead, and had spent on all the things associated. So just for one project, just for one sort of learning that came out of the community, they were able to show, a 3 or 4x ROI. And I think what's important to take away is their approach, right? They didn't have hard data. This was 20 years ago. They didn't have the tools, but what they could do is they could ask people, and they could say, okay, we know this isn't a perfect measurement, but conservatively, an approximation, how much would you attribute? So that's something you can take and ask salespeople at your company. Okay, how many of the leads you got would you estimate, the community was involved in some way, right? And then maybe ask the sales managers in this example, how confident are you in that estimation? We can't see everything, but so just using something like that is a very methodical way to show ROI, even when you don't have access to all the data. I also think sometimes when we're showing stakeholders, it's sort of tangible, real world examples out in the wild are also really powerful. So another way that I've used to show return on investment, this is if you're working in community at a larger company, is to show stakeholders, executives, examples. So when I was at WeWork, one of the things I tracked on my team, was responsible for the internal community of members, people that had offices at WeWork, and we would look how many times we would look for job postings by companies that were at WeWork, and if they mentioned the internal community or not, and we would just look through all, we'd do a search for jobs that mentioned WeWork in the job description, in the text, and then we'd look, what did they say? Did they mention the coffee? Okay, that's not relevant to us. Did they mention the community? Okay, that is relevant to us. And so we just kind of cataloged a list of those, and that was something that even the executives who were more like real estate people who weren't in the community business, was very clear to them. It meant more to them than any sort of chart, any sort of data analysis, because they understood if someone's putting it in their job post, that means they must think highly of it, right? They think high enough of it to put it in a job description because they're trying to attract, this is a sales material for their company. They're trying to attract talent. And if they think highly enough of this thing, that they would put it sort of in this job description for their community, that it must have a lot of value to them. So sometimes those artifacts, those stories, those examples, especially if they're out in the wild in a way, you can send a link and someone can sort of see it for themselves. That can also be really powerful when you're dealing with executives and stakeholders. Cool. Want to jump to questions. I did not save as much time as I'd hoped, but I can keep going if for anyone who has questions, as long as y'all can.
Okay. Amazing session. I really learned a lot. I came from a tech background, so basically more focused on managing tech communities. With this insight, I kind of seeing it from a different perspective. So Again, not just tech communities, but we're talking about building businesses that maybe not even tech related, but are like, in other industries, like maybe in the entertainment industry, maybe from of industry, I get an insight into how you could able to like gauge community. Again, not everything could be tracked, but
Yeah.
some can be tracked, right? So you have to focus on what can be tracked and like lose focus on what can't really be tracked. Actually be tracked in community building. So basically, if anyone have any question regarding this session right now, please do it to like raise their hand so we could able to like queue up the whole question thing so we know who could go first regarding to asking any question. Then if you want to like drop a message, your question on the chat, please you can do that. You can just drop it on the chat. I think we still have like even though we are like 2 minutes over our stipulated time, we can still pick in few questions. If you have okay, I think there's one hand up. Hi, Manuel.
All right, good evening.
Okay, yeah. Please
Uh,
wait to ask a question.
okay, I just want to ask something like, let me say, for someone that's just starting up his business for the first time, which don't really have a business strategy for his business. For my own business, I'm about to launch, I think, next week. So, but gathering business strategies on how to grow the business is kind of difficult because it's not what I've done before. So I don't know if there's any lights on where I can start from, just like from a zero background. This is a tech company, a tech startup based on just like an e-commerce for uh, an e-commerce marketing in Nigeria here.
Uh, Great. Just want to make sure I understand. So just like how to sort of get started in marketing this service for e-commerce. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, I mean, and it sounds like you're doing this yourself or maybe with a small team. So I mean, I think events are a really great a scalable way to start building community. And there's a lot of things you can do from those events that can go beyond just the event itself. So you know, so even if let's say let's just say you can get 4 people, right? 4 customers that are the types of customers that you think you're going to be able to help, and just say, hey, I want to invite you. We're going to be on Google Meet at this time. I'm founding this thing. I would love your feedback, and there's going to be some other people like you there and we can all just kind of talk about problems you're having, things you're dealing with. You can kind of talk to some peers. Maybe one of them, but probably some of them you don't know yet. So you'll be able to meet some new people, and it's just just 60 minutes, or maybe in person, and you pay for the lunch or the coffee or whatever. But you just bring together a small handful of people. You'll have to invite twice as many. If you want 4 people there, you'll invite 10, but you should be able to get a small group there. Especially if you're saying, hey, I'm looking to learn from you. I'm just starting this thing. People, there's enough people out there that want to help startups and founders. And if it's something new, and you sort of appeal to their vanity a little bit and say, hey, you're doing amazing stuff in this space. We'd like you to be a part of this. So you have this event. You record it or take notes. You make sure everyone there meets each other. That's great. And then and that's all great. But then the real benefit then is you take the stuff that was discussed there, the learnings, the topics. What are the things that they all like start nodding their heads? Yeah, that's really frustrating. That change in shipping or the thing Instagram did that's pissing us off, whatever that is. And you kind of summarize those things. And then you say, hey, for those that we had this great roundtable or lunch or whatever it was, we had this great small event. And here were the hottest topics that were discussed, or here's some of the things we learned, or some of the open questions, right? And then you do that a few times, and maybe by the 3rd time you do it, you get 20 people instead of 4 or 10 people. And the numbers themselves don't matter, but you just make sure, and then you make sure the people that come, the people that were able to support you, you really do what you can for them. You can't, you don't have budgets, you don't have, but you can sort of pay them in attention, right? You can say, hey, is there someone I can help introduce you to? Is there feedback I can give you on something? Can I take a look at the process you're doing? And it'll cost if you want to use our service, but I'm glad to point you in the right direction, or make introductions, or just give you a little bit of a small token of what our service would be. And then over time you can say, hey, everyone who wasn't able to attend, people who said, hey, I'm busy or whatever, you can send them the sort of summary of the event. And you should, sometimes you can get people's permission to actually use direct quotes from them and their name and put it on social media. But even if you can't, it's a really cool way to make that what was discussed in the event, that content, those things, to get them out to a little bit wider audience, and sort of build momentum for the next types of events. And everyone who comes, those 4 people that come to the first one, say, hey, who should be here? Who should be here, for this great little hour discussion we had that couldn't make it? Who do you, even if you don't know them, even if they don't know them. So who do you wish was at this little roundtable we had where we talked about problems in e-commerce that wasn't? And then you can just sort of build like that. And so I hope that's helpful. But you don't need to start with a large community. You don't need to start with a Slack or Discord or WhatsApp group or whatever. You just need to get a few people together, hear what they have to say, listen to their problems, and if you get more than 2 or 3 people together, the things that they discuss, the problems they bring up and talking to each other, should resonate with other people like them. So you start sharing that out, and pretty soon you've started building a community, even if it's done in these sort of events and over WhatsApp or email.
Awesome. That's great. I think we got something. Okay, amazing session. Thank you for sharing insights. Can Eric repeat this statement to create a collective? Okay, awesome. That's great. So while putting up this particular session for this event, someone reached out with a particular question. I think she was unable to join in on the session. So basically, she runs marketing at a large fintech company in Africa. She leads the marketing team. So she kind of looking at exploring community building for their startup right now. They have a large base of customers across Africa. So the question she had was, okay, we already have a lot of audiences, right? For our product, people who follow us on various social media, people who are part of our newsletter, but we are looking at starting at a community. What the best way for us to do that in terms of which platform should we ask them in, right? In terms of how do we track metrics, in terms of how does it convert to business for the company? How do we now pitch this to management? Hey, what's up? We're looking at starting a community for the company, but how does that in turn tie to, we will say, profit, or tie to increase in business? So she kind of what the best way to be able to start such community when it's already an established audience in followers, in newsletter. We're trying to bring people together to make sure that they have the people who use the product, who explore the APIs and stuff like that, could be able to be in one place and maybe benefit from much larger offers and stuff.
Yeah. So I would say in general, usually the best way to measure something with community is to essentially surveys, right? To ask on a regular basis. Now the sort of art and science of it comes in where you do that and how you do that. So, if there's a place where those customers are converting, and actually turning into money for the company, it's oftentimes you'll have, how did you hear about us? Or even, if you can ask, why are you buying this? What made you decide? Sometimes you can do that in the actual conversion forms and everything. And sometimes you may have to reach out to a small subset of those customers and get a response. But for me, that's the most compelling way, and it's also the easiest, not easiest, but it's the most knowable to execute. Because if you try to actually track the data, who was in the WhatsApp group or the forum or the Slack space or Discord, like it's so hard to track. Discord, they're going to use a different email address than maybe what their company uses. And it's so hard to actually track those things across all the different platforms, even if you had like almost unlimited technical resources. So the best thing to do is when they actually convert, ask them, or after the fact, have your if you can get a list of customers and sort of ask a relevant sample, and do that every few months, then you can show trends. Hey, the people that say they heard about it from the community, they actually spend more money. Or compared with last quarter, we're showing that last quarter 15% of the customers said they heard about the product from someone in one of our Facebook groups or LinkedIn or whatever. And this quarter it's 30%. So it's actually we're delivering new business, right? So I think that's the specific questions you'd ask and when you ask them, those are kind of you're the best person to figure that out. But I think as long as you can talk with the teams inside the business to try to get a list of a random sample of relevant customers, so you can go out and proactively ask them, or even better, in those places where they're converting, how did you hear about us, and make sure communities one of those choices. That's the most that's what I would do in this case.
Awesome, great. Thank you very much. That was really insightful. I think I jotted things down, and we definitely share with her. So I think that's basically all. If anyone have any question, I think we could do something in 2 minutes to just make sure that we just end in 30. So if you have any question, okay, favor. Oh, okay. I think let's just take this one as the last one before we call it a day. Hi, Favor.
Good evening, guys. I don't know if you could hear me.
Yeah, I can hear
you. Okay. So actually joining late. I was hoping to join the second session before I found out I later saw your message. So I don't know if I could get the summary of the main topic of community building and the return on investment. I don't know, something like that to help.
Oh, that's I'm not sure we could be able to do a recap. It's recorded, so it's a recorded session. So yeah, I'll be sharing it to everyone, not just people who attended the event, just to the whole larger community of over 200 plus persons. So I'm sharing to everyone who part of the community. So just watch out in your email. You get access to the recorded session. I'm not sure we'll be able to go back and do a recap. That would take more time on our end, right?
Okay.
Don't have any other question before we kind of call this a wrap. Okay, there's nothing on the chat. Okay, thank you very much, Eric, for joining us on this session. I really appreciate you spending I think it's 45 minutes more than with us on this session. It's one session that I was looking forward to because of the numbers of startups and companies in Africa looking at trying out community. They still feel community-led approach is a new thing in Africa that I think kind of understand what it meant to be community-led when building your business and your company in Africa. So I'm really happy that we're able to judge this at this summit, and we're having a recorded session, we're sharing it to everyone. So anyone who wasn't able to make it could be able to have access to the recorded session and just learn from it.
Awesome. Yeah, really glad to talk, and check out connect on LinkedIn or email or whatever. And also my colleague Kirsty's doing a talk tomorrow at 12 Central African time about how to create content with and for the community. And she does that for ComZorg. It's really good at how to create content with your community, and it's a great example of some of those things I was talking about today, and she's awesome. So if you can make that, I definitely encourage everyone to check that out as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think she's having a fake session for tomorrow. So if you are looking at creating content and creating content for your community, at this like best session for you to attend for tomorrow. It'll be like a mind-blowing session. She's the content leader at Community and Community Club. Again, you've seen the amazing stuff being put out by Community Club. Yeah, she's part of the team. So be ready for something exciting and inspiring. So I think this is the end of it. If you have any other question later on, you can be able to connect with Eric online. I think he shared. Okay, let me like try to copy and drop again. So okay, just check your chats. You'll be able to reach out to him. Find him on socials at that website name and just reach out if you have any question. Thank you once again, and looking forward to seeing everyone and the rest of the community tomorrow for our first session. Thank you, Eric, once again for joining us. Really appreciate spending this time with us.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks.
Yeah, bye, everyone.